Back on the show is an old friend of the show, John Becker. He is an LGBT activist, also managing editor of the Bilerico project. John, I had probably 10 or 15 people, including people that don't directly know you, just people who watch my show, send me your article about 78-year-old Dominique Venner. Tell us who Dominique Venner is, was, and kind of what's transpired in the last couple of days.
Well, Dominique Venner is a well-known, he's well-known in France. He's a French essayist, a right-wing activist, and from everything I've read, a far-right traditionalist Catholic. He's also a former member of a paramilitary group that waged a bombing and assassination campaign in the early 60s because they were upset that France was going to grant Algeria its independence. So he's a long-time right-wing activist, I guess well-known and respected in the right-wing quote-unquote intellectual community in France. So yesterday, Mr. Venner went to the Cathedral of Notre Dame, which, the iconic cathedral that everyone knows. It's France's #1 tourist destination, so it's a major world landmark. He went to the cathedral, went up to the altar, and shot himself in the mouth in front of hundreds of tourists. And he did this just after posting a note on his blog. It was a homophobic and Islamophobic note on his blog, basically talking about how awful and abominable the marriage equality law, the new marriage equality law was. And, he said it was kind of a stream of consciousness thing where he said that he read this Algerian blogger that said that if the Islamists get into power in France, they'll overturn the law, but that would also be bad because I don't like Islam. But he said, he ended with saying, that this fight will require new spectacular and symbolic actions to wake up the sleepwalkers. And he said, this final second of our lives is important as the rest of our lives. So he really kind of foreshadowed what he was about to do.
So basically, to essentially sum up, he's anti-gay and he's also anti-Muslim.
Right.
He wrote that as angry as he is about the growth of equality, he is also upset because he thinks the only way to stop that would be if Muslims stop it, and he also doesn't like Muslims. So then he says we need something grand, something at a new level to turn this around. And then after leaving that note, he kills himself, presumably under the impression that that is the big thing that would stifle equality.
That's, as far as I know, they haven't uncovered anything new about what his intentions might be. So that's the best that they have to go by, and that's why a lot of international sources were reporting that his gesture more than likely had to do with a protest of marriage equality. And also, one of the reasons that leads people to believe that is because Notre Dame was a focal point in the protests against marriage equality as the law was making its way through the French parliamentary system. The French Catholic Church was very, very vocal in their opposition. So, it was a highly symbolic choice of a venue to kill yourself. And
not only that, I mean, people may not understand this is a tourist location in many senses, and there were hundreds of people there. This would be like if people were at, I don't know, at the Lincoln Memorial, and all of a sudden somebody goes up there and in protest of something kills themselves by shooting themselves in the mouth. This is a huge public spectacle that this guy made of himself.
Absolutely. I mean, and I guess the evacuation was orderly, but people started screaming. It was quite the frightening thing, as you can imagine. Going out in front of hundreds of people. But apparently, this man was he had to have been a troubled individual to start out with.
Yeah.
But apparently, he was just so upset by the thought that same-sex couples would be able to get to happily marry each other that he just couldn't bear to live in a world where that was the case.
This is obviously a tragic story in the sense that now his family and everyone who knew him, who presumably liked him in spite of his views, now has to deal with this loss. But the other thing is, earlier this week, and I'd be curious to get your thought on this, I don't remember what story we were talking about. We were talking about I think it was actually the shooting in New York City that we were talking about, where a gay man was shot after being stalked by a 33-year-old individual. And I said to myself, I understand that some people for religious reasons think homosexuality is wrong, but it's hard for me to imagine being so angry that it exists that you just go out and shoot gay people. I find it much more plausible that somebody who is gay but is not comfortable with that and is living a life where they can't admit that, they would be angry that somebody else has the freedom to live life the way they want to. I just kind of stream of consciousness said that. And we heard now, we've gotten 2 voicemails, one from a member of the military who said, I'm a lesbian, and because of how I had to live when I was in Iraq, when I came back, I hated gay people. I was angry with gay people because of how they were able to live. When you read this story, John, do you think of that type of line of reasoning? I mean, what strikes you about it?
I think that could certainly be a possibility. You know, as you pointed out, it's quite often the case. You know, we've seen so many high-profile homophobes over the past, decades,
Right.
That have, been subsequently busted, trying to hook up with men. So there really is, and they've done studies that show that in many cases, the most outspokenly homophobic men are the ones who are the most aroused by gay imagery.
Right.
So, I really do think that there is a lot to that, and it could be a very strong possibility that Mr. Venner may have had some, maybe he was bisexual, or maybe he was never able to explore that part of his life, and took it out on himself by taking his life as a result of his homophobic hatred. I think there's also a lot of internalized homophobia in the Catholic Church among the hierarchy. So I really do think that the element of internalized homophobia could very well play a part here.
Well, it's a disturbing story and tragic nonetheless. We've been speaking with John Becker, managing editor of the Bilerico Project, LGBT activist. John, great reporting on this, and great to have you back on the show today.
Thanks, David. It's been a pleasure as always.